Hi, this is John from Morris V4 Sales. We sell all the parts for the Ford V4 that was in the Saab Sonnet, in the Saab 95 and the Saab 96. It was also in skid steers and snowcats. It was also in the Mustang 1, the very first Mustang in 1962 is where the motor was developed. So a lot of people call and ask about how to identify their motors. So basically there's two specific ways that they built this motor. One, in the beginning, the 1500 series was called the open deck block, and it looks like this over here. You can see that the deck area of the block is open in this area here, and they built that approximately until about 1967. Then they went with the closed. See right here.
Okay.
What you see right here, the closed deck block, where they filled all this in. And so the question for people is, how do I know the difference between the open and the closed? And the difference is the closed deck block has soft plugs on the side, and so when they cast the block, they cast it around sand, and the sand needed to come out, and so they had to put soft plug holes in there to get the sand out. Block, they just had the sand come out around the cylinders, and so there are no soft plugs on the side of the block for the sand to come out, so they left this open. So up until about 1967 they built the open deck block, and just about all of them were a 1500 cc motor. Then when they went to the closed deck block, almost all of them were a 1700 cc motor. And the important thing with these two are the fact that the heads cannot be changed from one to the other. And I'll show you the difference between the heads. So the closed deck block doesn't have a continuous. So the closed deck block doesn't have openings for the water jackets next to the end of the cylinders. This one is also a closed deck block. And then this particular one is an open deck block, and you can see where they have the opening at the ends, and that's critical because the gaskets that you order are either closed deck or open. This one is an open deck block, and so it only has one big water hole at the very end that takes care of all the water, because of the fact that the cylinder block is all open around this, and so it can circulate very easily. If you put this on a closed deck block head, what's going to happen is you're going to block out all of the water passages, and so it'll get really hot. This one is a closed deck, and as you can see, the water jacket openings line up at the end with the holes in the head. So that's very important when you're working on your motor, that you know that you have either an open deck block and heads or a closed deck block and head. And so the quickest, easiest way to know is either look to see if you have soft plugs on your block. If you have soft plugs on your block, it's closed deck. And if you do not have soft plugs on your block, it's open deck. And another very important thing is on the open deck block, it requires a different type of spark plug. As you can see, this is an open deck block with the holes, but the spark plug, the proper spark plug, is only a 1.5 inch thread spark plug. So I've seen numerous times where people have looked up spark plugs for their Saab motor or their V4 Ford motor, and they buy the 3/4 inch spark plugs thread for the closed deck block, and it sticks out and the piston will hit it if it's not clocked just right. So some of the spark plugs that are in the book, or some of the spark plugs that I see in a lot that are standard, are the Champion RN9YC Champion with a 3/4 inch thread. That's for the closed deck. Or the Champion J10Y for the open deck, which is the shorter one. So when you're changing out spark plugs, be sure that you know whether you have an open or a closed deck block. So the difference between the 1500cc and the 1700cc is the crank, piston, and connecting rod. So you can install a 1700cc crank in an open deck block, but you also need to match it up with the 1700cc piston and connecting rod, because the difference is the stroke. So you can use either a 1500 or 1700 crank in either of the open or closed deck block, but you have to match the connecting rod and the pistons. The piston for the 1500 open deck block is taller than the 1700, and they need to do that because the stroke is longer. And so if you use the connecting rod and piston for the 15, it's going to hit the head when it rotates. So this is, and if you're not positive what you have, all the cranks for the 1700 crank, all the cranks, you want to flip it upside down and take your oil pan off. Your crank will always be stamped 1700 or
Yeah.
So this is the 1500cc crank, and you'll see that it has the 15 stamped on the crank. And so there again, it's going to be a longer stroke, a shorter stroke with a taller piston for the 1500cc. but you can swap out cranks between the open deck and the closed deck. But you got to make sure and use the 1500 pistons and connecting rods with the 1500 crank.
Go.
And both pistons are 90 millimeter bore, so the bore size is the same on each block. Now, just so you know, my phone number is 605 290 1582, and you can call me anytime for parts or if you have a question on what needs to fit on your motor. We also have distributors that
John, you want to show that engine complete before we head outside, or saying this?
Yeah.
This is what it shows.
Oh,
Complete.
you're pausing it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Okay. See, like before we step outside, let's just take a look at the complete or something like that.
yeah. Okay.
Just
So
ready?
yeah. Underneath like this.
John,
But,
hold on a sec. When you said coil,
oh,
make sure tell them high. No, just tell them make sure you use a high energy coil
Okay.
without a resistor. Okay.
When you use this distributor, the electronic one, just be sure that you use a high performance coil, and I always get the XL 8140C 12 volt coil, super stack. They're very reasonably priced, $29. And it's just the two wires from the distributor, plug in positive and negative, red and black, and you're good to go. Make sure that you take your resistor out of the wiring so that this has a full 12 volts at all times. Once you do that, you'll be amazed at how much energy your motor will have. Now, this is where I mount the primary ignition module underneath there, but some people, for like FICO snowcats, claim that it gets in the way of their throttle linkage. So I can take that, and I'm going to show you on my skid steer. I can have it mounted up here, and you can just if you want to buy one, just let me know where you want it. I can mount it up here, or you can mount it remotely, so you can have like a 2-foot extension on the wires, and then you can make sure that you have aluminum plate. I'll send you that so that it cools properly, and then you can mount that. There'll just be a mounting hole, and you can mount it anywhere you want on your engine. You can mount it next to your coil with a coil screw, or it makes no difference. So if you would prefer to have that somewhere else, just let me know, and then we'll show you this unit that I use on my skid steer, and show you how good it works and how well it fits, and we'll go from there. This unit right here is what I have my motor in. I've built completely built 4 of these now, along with the motor, and I've never had an issue with any of the motor. not performing. This is my distributor. I'm going to show you. This is my electronic distributor that I showed you inside the shop, and it's basically just 2 wires going to a high energy coil. Right here, this white one and this black one going to plus and minus, and then the coil just gets 24 volts from the key is all there is. Other than that, I did mount my ignition module on top here to get it up out of the way from there. So that's that. And I'll show. Okay.
Go.
Okay.